Most people think they'll know when they're making the wrong decision in their marriage. I didn't. That's what makes it dangerous. I'm 84 now, and I can tell you this without guessing. The choices that mattered most never felt important at the time. They felt reasonable, ordinary, even responsible. Nothing I did looked like a mistake while I was doing it. By the time I understood what I had been choosing, there was nothing left to fix, only to see. I married a woman named Anne. She was calm, practical, the kind of person who made things easier, not louder. We met young enough that everything still felt open-ended. We talked about the future the way people do when they assume it will cooperate. When we married, there was no hesitation, no drama, no doubt worth naming. I thought that meant we were doing it right. Our life settled quickly into something functional. We divided responsibilities without arguing. We learned each other's routines. We built something that worked. Friends called us solid. Family stopped worrying about us. What I didn't notice was how little we asked of each other once things were running smoothly. I didn't notice how much we neglected the small things. We skipped the small moments. I didn't ask how she was really feeling. I stopped noticing the little things, how she smiled at something, how her hands moved when she was nervous, how her voice changed when she was tired. We stopped slowing down to just be present with each other. Each omission seemed so small at the time, so harmless. A skipped question here, a distracted glance there. But they stacked up, slowly, silently, until one day you notice a space has formed between you, and you can't remember when it started. By the time I realized it, the distance was already there. It didn't arrive with a fight or a crisis. It had been built quietly, day by day, in all the moments we ignored. Marriage isn't shaped by vows or grand gestures. It's shaped by the tiny attentions you give, or fail to give, every single day. Some lives fall apart loudly, with shouting and breaking. Ours didn't. We drifted, quietly, imperceptibly. And in neglect of those small things, the things that seem too small to matter, left a mark that now feels permanent. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't a fight. It was a single, ordinary morning that changed everything. Anne had been quiet all week, more tired than usual. I thought it was nothing, just age, just routine. But that morning, she fainted in the kitchen. I caught her, and the world narrowed to the look in her eyes, scared, fragile, and alone in a way I hadn't noticed. In that instant, I saw her. Not just her calm, practical surface, but the weight she'd carried silently for decades. I saw the times I hadn't asked how she was feeling, the moments I'd skipped noticing the little things that mattered. Every small neglect I'd allowed suddenly stood out, sharp and undeniable. She was there, in front of me, alive, but the clarity hit me like a wave. I realized that nothing I thought I knew about our life would feel the same again. Not because she had changed, not because of one incident, but because I had finally seen what had been missing all along: attention, care, presence. I wanted to tell her I understood. I wanted to make up for every omission, every day I hadn't been present. But some things can't be fixed with words. The awareness alone hit like a wave. All those tiny neglects had formed a distance between us. And yet, for the first time, clarity arrived with purpose. I could still notice. I could still act. Not for a grand gesture, not for recognition, just for her. That morning, I began paying attention again. I started asking questions I had skipped. I started listening without planning my next words. I began to slow down, to observe, to simply be there. It didn't undo the years I had ignored, but it changed the ones that followed. And in that moment, I understood something else too. The small things don't stay small. After that morning, nothing looked different on the surface. The kitchen was still the kitchen. The sunlight still fell the same way. But I was different. I started noticing Anne again, not with grand gestures, not with promises, just noticing. How her eyes lingered on something small, how her hands trembled when she was tired, how a quiet smile could carry a whole day. I asked questions I had skipped for years. How was your night? How do you feel today? I listened without planning the next thing to say. She noticed, not with applause, not with words, just in quiet ways, a softer smile, a hand held a little longer, warmth in her eyes that had been fading. And it wasn't just with Anne. Watching our children taught me lessons I hadn't seen before. I noticed the way they approached the world, how their small victories mattered to them, how they needed presence, patience, and attention, even when they didn't ask. I realized then that the same patterns applied everywhere. The way we live in daily moments shapes lives, not big events. The way we pay attention, or fail to, shapes love, trust, and connection. It wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about showing up differently, every single day, even in ways that felt ordinary. And slowly, quietly, things began to shift. Life didn't explode with happiness or drama. It simply became alive again. Every small gesture accumulated. A cup of tea handed without being asked. A question about her day answered with attention. A child's drawing noticed instead of ignored. Over time, the distance that had quietly formed began to shrink. Not because everything was perfect, not because I had planned it, but because I had finally learned to notice. The change with Anne didn't stay in the kitchen or in our quiet talks. It followed me into the rest of our life. I began noticing the children differently. The way they laughed too loud sometimes, or didn't speak at all when they were upset. The way small achievements made their eyes light up, even if they said nothing. I realized I had been missing so much, simply because I wasn't paying attention. I stopped assuming I already knew how they felt. I asked, I waited, I listened. Sometimes it was nothing. Sometimes it was everything. And the lessons from those moments were clear, even without words. Life is made of small gestures. Connection grows in ordinary moments. Attention is a gift that shapes how people feel, who they become. It wasn't about controlling or directing them. It was about being present, seeing, letting them know silently that they mattered. I saw the same in my marriage. Small attentions mattered more than grand gestures. I saw it in our children. Noticing them, even in the quietest ways, changed the way they moved through the world. I saw it in myself, how little awareness I had given before, and how much power lay in simply paying attention. The transformation didn't announce itself. It was subtle, quiet, but undeniable. And for the first time, I felt the weight of those lessons, not as regret, but as something I could carry forward. Anne passed just over a year ago. I still see her in quiet ways, a glance, a gesture, the weight of her presence in the house. And yet, I feel no regret. Because we lived differently after that morning in the kitchen, because I noticed, because I acted. The small things I learned to see, the questions, the pauses, the attentions I had once ignored, became the life we shared in those years. Not dramatic, not perfect, just alive. I see it in our children too. the way they notice others, the way they carry themselves, the small kindnesses, the patience, the awareness, all echoes of the quiet lessons I finally learned to live. Life didn't give us perfection. It gave us presence. It gave us attention. It gave us the chance to live a love that could be felt, not just assumed. Notice the small things. Ask how she's really feeling tonight, even if she says she's fine. Pause long enough to see the little moments you usually rush past. The way her hands move when she's tired, the quiet gestures she makes without realizing it. Listen without planning your next words. Let her speak without interruption. Sit with her for a moment longer than usual. Hold hands a little longer. Brush her hair aside with care, or just share the silence together. These things may feel small, they may feel ordinary, but they're what build a marriage that lasts. Look at your children too. Watch how they laugh, how they move, how they respond to small kindnesses. Notice the moments they long to be seen and understood. These tiny attentions shape the way they grow, the way they love, and the way your family lives together. Start practicing this now, before time drifts by. Ask, pause, listen, notice, again and again. Don't wait for a quiet kitchen, or a fainting moment, or a year gone by to realize what you've missed. These small acts, done steadily, quietly, can change everything. And when you notice something that matters, tell someone. Share it. Even a single gesture of attention can ripple across a life. Make it part of your days, not a lesson saved for later. Marriage, family, connection. They live in the moments you choose to see. Start seeing them today. If this story made you notice something you've been overlooking, leave a comment, even one word. Subscribe, not for me, but so these quiet lessons can reach you before it's too late. And share it with someone you care about. Sometimes the smallest attention changes everything. Hope we meet again.